I've built a team with both Salah and Haaland in it that has a 95% AI rating. I'm going to take you through it in this video. So the way I thought I'd structure this is I'd go through some stats, data, things like that to go through and justify some of the picks that I've made. Now, the previous video I made to this one, I'll link it in the description. I went through all of the sources that I use for my stats and data for both my videos and FPL. And one of those stats sources was 11ify. And you can see their clean sheet odds. What they've done is ranked the total expected clean sheets based upon probability for the first 6 game weeks, and then the teams are ranked, so the 20 teams based on their probabilities of keeping clean sheets for the first 6 game weeks are ranked here. And what I like to think, right, when you're picking a player in FPL, I usually suggest picking them for the first at least 5 game weeks. If you're picking a player, 3 to 5. If you're picking a player, you at least want them to be in your team for 3 to 5 game weeks, I would say. So looking at these clean sheet odds for the first 6 game weeks, and well, you can see individual game weeks as well, right? It's a pretty good way, in my opinion, of deciding the teams that you want to pick defenders from. Now, the obvious guys are top, right? Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool. But outside of that, we've got Villa, who I expect to be quite strong this season. Crystal Palace in 5th place. Brighton, Chelsea, Forest, who have got some really kind fixtures, particularly for the first 3. You can see the rest of them on this list here. So you get an idea of the best premium defenders, for example, for clean sheet odds, and also some of the best cheaper defenders, if you like. And beyond that, Rob T FPL is a great source of spread market betting data, basically. So these are projections from the big gambling companies. They spend millions and millions on their algorithms to project the outcomes of football games in order to set the odds and obviously make as much profit on gambling as possible. So I would back their numbers for predictions. And this is a projected goal involvement across the season for defenders sort of matrix. So we're not going to go through them all, but we've got Trent, Porro, Trippier, Robertson, James, Martson, Guardiola. You can see the rest of the players there. So combination of the clean sheet odds from 11ify that we've just looked at and the projected goal involvement should help you decide who, and me, of course, when I pick this team, to decide who are the best defenders to pick in the game. Beyond that, I wanted to do a little case study just in general on 4.5 million defenders because, quite honestly, I think there are so many pickable 4.5 million defenders in the game. Now, you can look, if you're looking to pick your team, you can look through this list and pick your own. I genuinely don't believe, quite honestly, there's a whole lot between a lot of these picks and points at the end of the season. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot to split them. Some of them are better for attacking returns. Some of them are better for clean sheets. Some of them get an average amount of both, right? I would say my standouts from this list, probably looking Konsa, Anderson of Crystal Palace. He's probably the best of the Crystal Palace defenders. I'd say Mikalenko. I do like Newcastle, and I'll tell a bit of a porky when looking at this list, actually. But I actually have a different Newcastle defender than Dan Burn in here. But I thought I'd put Dan Burn's stats in purely because he played sort of the most games of a Newcastle defender at left back. And I'd back someone else to play at left back who's actually in my team. You might be able to guess who that is. But I thought Dan Burn's stats would be useful to see just how good Newcastle were defensively and how attacking their sort of left-sided defender was. So yeah, you get Van der Ven, Aït-Nouri, Robinson in there as well. I really like Anthony Robinson of Fulham, not for the first fixture. Obviously, Man United away at Old Trafford is tough, but then he's got Leicester and Ipswich in game weeks 2 and 3. 2 promoted teams, could do well in those games. Ultimately, yeah, I remember at the start I spoke about my standouts. I'd probably say Konsa, Anderson, Mikalenko, a Newcastle defender. Aït-Nouri later on in the season I think will be quite good, and Robinson at the start I think would be my picks. So then, with all that in mind, I've gone for Dean Henderson in goal. We saw the clean sheet odds for the first 6 game weeks. Crystal Palace ranked number 5 in the league, and I think Dean Henderson is also going to make a decent amount of saves as well. So combination of really decent clean sheet odds, and I'd expect him to make a fair few saves as well. I think he's set to be a pretty decent goalkeeper. Mikalenko, I think, offers a good balance of attacking returns and clean sheet potential for Everton. Everton kept 13 clean sheets last season, so do I think they quite get that level this year? Probably not, but of the 4.5 million defenders, I genuinely think he offers the best in terms of best opportunity of returns from both an attacking perspective, given he plays at fullback, and clean sheets, given how good Everton were defensively. I actually went for Lewis Hall of Newcastle. Now, I still think it's a little bit uncertain as to how they line up with their fullbacks. With Trippier going, it looks like Livramento could be the starting right back, but he's not gone yet. Lewis Hall, though, I think should replace Dan Burn. Well, Dan Burn played in and out at left back, didn't he, last season? Sometimes played centre back. But I think given he's had a good pre-season so far, I think he's probably going to start at left back for Newcastle. And with that opening fixture against Southampton, the attacking upside that he will provide from left back, I think he's a really nice option. And then I went for Guardiola as well. I think Guardiola, he offers a good balance of, well, he's 6 million, first of all. He's going to be super attacking, as we saw with Man City last season. And I think looking at the Man City clean sheet odds as well, I think they're really quite kind. We'll just go back to those clean sheet odds. I think they're really quite kind. So, yeah, Guardiola is going to be my pick. So that's my 4 starting defenders and goalkeeper. On to the midfielders and forwards now. And I just wanted to use Rob T FPL's data again. This is players ranked by their projected goal involvements across the season. So I've actually got Haaland as the number 1. Don't think that'll surprise too many. He's expected to get 33.5 total returns. Salah in second, Saka in third, Palmer in fourth, and Son in fifth. Like, there's so many players on this list, right? I'm not going to go through them all. But the obvious thing to take from this list is obviously this doesn't include FPL prices. What might be good, actually? Maybe I can do this, is take some of these stats from Rob T FPL, put them next to the player prices, and then we get a total projected goal involvements per million. That'd be quite a nice metric, I would suggest. Again, it's the same sort of spread betting market data that we've seen for defender goal involvement odds. I think it's probably the best sort of source of data you can get for projecting outcomes. So I'm using this to pick my midfield and forwards, basically, and I wanted to show it on the screen so you can do the same. And then we've also got the expected points totals for the first 3 game weeks. Now, Draft Hunt and FPL Review, I've been able to sort them for game week 1. So you can see here, these are the top players for expected points for game week 1. You can see there's some regularly occurring players on this list. These are the kind of players, of course, you know, the top players for expected points in these algorithms. These are the kind of players I want to be picking in my team, and I think you should too. All right, so my midfield is shaping up like this then. I've gone for Nkunku. I think 6.5 million, there's plenty of options at this price point in midfield or cheaper. He is a little bit of a risk. I would class him as fairly injury prone now, to be honest, but I think he's going to get off to a good start this season with Chelsea. Maresca has been absolutely singing his praises with his performances in pre-season. You know, the acclaim that he comes with from his previous club. He was really unlucky, I think, to do his knee before the start of last season. I think he's going to do well. The thing that might put you off is that Man City at home fixture in game week 1. Admittedly, you know, it's one of the toughest fixtures you can ask for. But like I said, you don't just pick a player for 1 game week. You're picking them for at least 3 to 5, I would suggest. So for that reason, I've gone for Nkunku. I think across the season, if he stays fit, he'll prove to be the best midfielder in the game at this price point or below. Again, big sort of check mark, I guess, on whether he will stay fit. I really love Anthony Gordon as an option. He had a fantastic season last year. I think he got 30 attacking returns, somewhere there or thereabouts 30. Absolutely nailed on start for Newcastle. Plays 90 minutes. Eddie Howe just absolutely loves him because he does a bit of work defensively. Runs all day. He's a really good option and got a lot of returns last season. And the opening fixtures for Newcastle, Southampton at home is really good. And then the opening fixtures beyond that are really good as well. I think he's a great option. Eze is my pick, I would say, of the 7 million midfielders. I actually think he's going to prove, as long as he stays fit, prove to be really good value this season. With Elise going, Eze is the nailed on, in my opinion, Crystal Palace penalty and free kick taker. So even if he has a poor game from open play, just by taking free kicks and penalties, he gives himself even more chance of getting attacking returns. He'll start every game he's fit for, in my opinion, and play 90 minutes. And obviously, that's the same for Mo Salah as well. Absolutely nailed on to start for Liverpool, even under Slot. I don't think he can leave Mo Salah out. Liverpool's absolute talisman pretty much guarantees you 30 returns per season without fail. And I'd say for game week 1, Ipswich away, he's probably the best captain as well. Right, couple of things to look at in terms of forwards then. I'm pretty much set on having Erling Haaland in my team. Call me boring, and I know he's expensive, but Ipswich at home in match day 2 or game week 2 and West Ham away in 3. I just think he's the best captain for those 2 game weeks, and given the projected returns that we looked at, he's above Salah, which means he should get more returns and therefore more points. So I want to have Haaland in my team whenever there's an opportunity to captain him. Now, the other decision is I can afford one more premium forward, basically, and it's choosing between Watkins and Isak. I've spent quite a lot of time talking about this in my other videos, so I'll go a bit quickly here. Genuinely though, you look at those stats, Watkins got 18 assists last season, which really propped up his FPL points total. I'd really ask the question, can he replicate that this year? I don't think he's quite going to get that level of at least assist returns. 19 goals is obviously very respectable, sorry. But then you look down at Isak, from 27 games, 10 starts less, he scored 2 more goals than Watkins, right? I guess one's potential upside of Watkins is he could be the Aston Villa penalty taker, but he is actually quite poor at taking penalties. The reason Douglas Luiz takes them, or took them before he left to go to Juventus, was because Ollie Watkins missed too many. So yeah, he's not the best penalty taker in the world. So I would question if John McGinn would become the Aston Villa penalty taker. I would say if Watkins is confirmed to be the Aston Villa penalty taker, it becomes a bit more of a tough decision. But given what Isak takes them for Newcastle, Watkins, we don't think he does yet for Aston Villa. And Isak scored more goals from less starts, and he's 0.5 million cheaper, and he's probably got better fixtures as well. I just think Isak is a better option than Watkins. I'm really warming up to the idea of having Chris Wood in my team, at least for the first few game weeks. I would say Forest have probably the best opening 3 fixtures of any team. He put up some really good numbers last season. 14 goals from 20 starts is really good. He will obviously share minutes and have competition for Mawuni. Now, I think just given his form at the end of last season, he's going to start those first 3 fixtures. And I'd be quite happy once those fixtures turn a little bit. I'd be quite happy to sub him out for someone else at that point. I think the way to go is pick Chris Wood for the first 3 fixtures. Maybe move to either Muniz or João Pedro after that. But those first 3 fixtures for Forest are just so good. It's really hard to ignore Chris Wood. So no surprise then, Haaland, Isak and Wood up front. I would actually say, to be fair, there are 2 contenders as to who could be captain in game week 1. I genuinely think Southampton at home, given he's on penalties, you know, the level of returns he got last season, Isak is genuinely a captaincy shout, but I would say I'm a little bit too scared to go away from Salah. But if you for whatever reason, don't want to pick Salah and have Isak in your team, I think there's no issue if you really did want to captain him. So I plugged this team into the Fantasy Football Hub AI team rating tool, and it suggested to me a couple of changes. Now, before I talk about those, if you want to put your own team in this and get it rated by the Fantasy Football Hub AI, I also showed earlier on some projected expected points for the first 3 game weeks. All of the players in the league are on that model. So if you want to see that kind of data yourself to help improve your overall FPL game, you get 50% off if you sign up to Fantasy Football Hub using my link in the description. This one gets a 95% rating with 65.1 expected points, which I think is a pretty good total for game week 1. It did suggest a couple changes. So the current model predicts that Sam Johnston is going to be the starting keeper for Crystal Palace. I do think it's a little bit up in the air as to who starts for them between obviously Dean Henderson and Johnston. I do think we'll have clarity though before the start of the season. And it's a similar story really with the Newcastle defenders. The model doesn't yet back Lewis Hall to be a first choice starter. Obviously, I'm suggesting he will be. The model disagrees. It's okay to have some disagreement. It predicts Livramento to play. So Livramento is the one that gets the expected points covering the Newcastle defence, if you like. And obviously, Sam Johnson is considered to be the starting Crystal Palace keeper. So what I'm kind of alluding to is that AI likes my team, just a couple of like-for-like changes, and it gets a 95% AI rating. All right, and that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. Let me know in the comments what you think of my team. Like I said, in most of my videos, right, you might not agree with everything I have to say, and that's absolutely fine. You know, if we all had the same opinion in FPL, we'd all have the same team, and the game would be really boring. So, you know, if there are players, picks, opinions there that I've shared that you disagree with, feel free to put it in the comments. Just be polite about it, please. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a like rating, and you can subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, which should be just there on your screen. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in my next video.